Hello and welcome to another supplemental, folks, and today I want to talk about Wesley Crusher from Star Trek The Next Generation. He's often thought of as one of the worst characters in the show and even the entire franchise, but after my most recent rewatch of TNG for my big retrospective video, I didn't find him nearly as bad as he's often made out to be. In fact, I thought there was a lot of good things about the character, and he had several really good episodes centered on him. So here is my sort of lukewarm defense of Wesley Crusher. I don't think he's that bad. However, this does come with a few caveats. For one thing, yes, he was really annoying in early TNG. Even Will Wheaton has thought so. Years later, Wheaton has done a sort of review of TNG, and yeah, even he acknowledges that, yeah, it's kind of understandable why audiences reacted to the character the way they did. But then again, every character on the show was kind of poorly written back then. The character writing in general was really bad because of the whole no conflict edict. Basically, Gene Roddenberry told the writers that by the 24th century, workplace conflict would have been eliminated, and so the characters couldn't have conflict with each other. And that hampered a lot of writers who basically just didn't know how to write any drama, because good drama is often dependent on conflict. And so by removing that, a lot of writers didn't really know what to do. And so, yes, while Wesley Crusher isn't a great character, or even a good character in early TNG, most of the characters aren't very good. I would say the exceptions are like Picard and Data, mostly because Patrick Stewart is just such a good actor that even though he had very thin material, he just has that authoritative, commanding presence, which is just great to watch. And Brent Spiner as Data, that was such a great character, and he played it so well that no matter what he did, he was just very, very entertaining. But everyone else was very flat, and so Wesley Crusher was not really unique in being a weak character in early TNG. I also take issue with the statement that Wesley Crusher, quote-unquote, always saved the Enterprise. Now, I understand this criticism, that it's unbelievable for a young boy to be smarter than well-trained adult Starfleet officers, but his genius and the crew's incompetence, I think, has been really exaggerated over the years. There's a great breakdown on Hero Collector by a guy called Ben Robinson, in which he analysed this in depth. Wesley only, quote-unquote, saved the ship a total of 13 times, and even that has a caveat, which is by saved it means meaningfully contributed to solving a problem. Really, Wesley didn't quote-unquote save the day any more or less than the rest of the characters. Now, some would say even that is too much, but it's made clear Wesley is supposed to be some kind of child prodigy, isn't he? So it does make sense for his intelligence and knowledge of the ship's systems to occasionally match the well-trained Starfleet officers. That being said, sometimes the crew are very, very dumb. For example, in the episode Data Lore, it's just so obvious when Lore is impersonating Data, and it's kind of painful to watch Wesley be the only one who notices this. So yeah, that I'll give you that as an occasion where the intelligence of the well-trained Starfleet officers was severely dumbed down. Other times, though, in episodes like When No One Has Gone Before, where Wesley is the first to notice the Traveler's abilities when he's phasing in and out when the Enterprise is going at faster, super fast speeds, I think that one makes sense. Kaczynski, after all, is like the loudest one in that room. He's the one with the biggest ego, the biggest reputation, so everyone's looking at him, and no one takes notice of the Traveler. I think that makes sense, and really it's not because Wesley's inherently smarter or the rest of the people are being idiots. They're just not paying attention because, through pretty understandable logic, they think the problem is Kaczynski. And really, it's just because Wesley happens to be next to the Traveler when he starts phasing in and out that he's the one who notices it. If LaForge was standing over there, he would notice it as well. So there's a lot of stuff like that, where Wesley being the one to notice things and the others not, that's kind of understandable. As I said, with Data Lore, it's not. The characters were behaving really, really stupid. But in other episodes, I think it's understandable when Wesley's the one that sort of picks up on things which others don't. I also think it could have been way, way worse. I think we should all be really thankful that Wesley Crusher was never written to have any kind of ego. Like, just imagine how insufferable he would have been if he knew how smart he was and rubbed it in other people's faces. Then the young age of the character would have made him really detestable, and his young age relative to the adult, well-trained Starfleet officers, that would have been terrible. But instead, Wesley Crusher, in the early years, has that sort of bland, optimistic, it's kind of like a 1950s or 60s like Robin kind of thing, where he has that sort of, oh boy, geez, you really think so kind of thing, that kind of personality, which in and of itself is pretty irritating, but ultimately I don't think it's that offensive. The most offensive thing about him, to me at least, was his jumpers. I mean, what is going on here? So, while I do acknowledge that he was a pretty weak character in seasons 1 and 2, almost everyone was a weak character in seasons 1 and 2, and the worst aspects of Wesley Crusher, I think, have been exaggerated over the years. But by season 3, like almost everything else in TNG, Wesley Crusher really started to improve. He got some real depth and personality beyond the gee, oh boy type of personality he had before. He was still super smart, of course, but he also made plenty of mistakes in his teenage personal struggles. I think they were quite relatable. Evolution, for example, the first episode of season 3, is a really great Wesley-centric episode. His relationship with Dr. Stubbs is really great. Obviously, he aspires to be like Dr. Stubbs because he has this great experiment and he's really intelligent and all that. But Stubbs, at the same time, in pursuing his experiment at the cost of others, with the nanites and even puts the ship in danger and so on, it brings up that whole empathy versus technological progress theme, which I've mentioned before, and so Wesley kind of learns from that as well. And Wesley's scene with Guinan is also really great. I feel like the writers sort of acknowledge the perceived infallibility and perfectness of the character by turning that into the pressure that Wesley must feel to always do well. And so when he lets these nanites get loose, he feels like he's made a huge mistake and he can't admit that mistake because everyone expects him to be perfect. I think it's really well written. I think it's really clever. And Wesley and Guinan have some really good chemistry. I even like the episode The Game. I feel like most people don't like this one. I feel like this is a hated one. I often see it appear on worst of lists, but I think The Game is really fun. I don't know if I'm in the minority about that, but I don't know. I think The Game's quite good. I really liked the character of Robin Leffler. I thought she was really cool, and Wheaton has really great chemistry with Ashley Judd. It's a teen romance, which I think really works. It comes off as really sincere, and it avoids that sort of 90210 thing. It's not cringy. I think it really works. So I really like that relationship, but for me, the best Wesley-centric episode, though, is easily The Last Mission, which was Wesley's last episode as a regular character in TNG. And honestly, I kind of regret not highlighting this one in my TNG retrospective. The Picard-Wesley relationship has always been strong, in my opinion at least, even from early TNG, such as the episode The Samaritan Snare, where Wesley and Picard share that shuttle ride, and we get to know more about Picard's personal history. I think it's really well written. There are a lot of complex feelings between Wesley and Picard. Wesley obviously admires Captain Picard. He's this sort of paragon Starfleet officer. He's like the best of the best, and obviously Wesley aspires to be like Picard. But Picard sort of resents Wesley being on the bridge at first, the whole get off my bridge and shut up Wesley kind of stuff. And to me, I think, perhaps Picard sees signs of his younger self, being sort of cocky and undisciplined and things, so maybe that's where that resentment comes from. But I think it's also very clear that Picard respects Wesley's ambition and recognizes his abilities. So there's that side to it as well. But in amidst all this, there's also that sort of lingering anger that Wesley feels towards Picard and guilt that Picard feels over the death of Wesley's father. And that comes up in a great scene in The Bonding. In general, when it comes to Picard and Wesley, there's actually a lot of really fantastic, rich, dramatic material there. In The Last Mission, the scene where Picard, as he's injured and kind of dying, says that he envies Wesley Crusher because of the experiences which are behind Picard but ahead of Wesley. It's a really brilliant scene. It's so well acted and really, really touching. Honestly, I think I would have liked to have seen more of Wesley Crusher. In my opinion, at least, he was shaping up to be a really great character and had several solid episodes centered on him. As I said, yes, he was annoying in the early years. I totally understand where the hate comes from. But overall, I think Wesley was a good, even great character, and I don't think he really deserves to be as widely despised as he often is by Star Trek fans. Tim Dean asks, would you do a review of Battle Beyond the Stars? I don't think I would do a video on that movie on my main channel. However, what's more likely is a watch party video on one of my other channels. Over on the channel Grindhouse Media, we do fan commentaries on fun, schlocky movies, and those videos are loads of fun to make. Battle Beyond the Stars is totally one of those fun B movies which suits those videos, so I'll probably cover Battle Beyond the Stars in something like that instead one day. Thank you for watching. If you like these videos, subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on my new uploads. If you want to help the channel grow, join my patrons or my YouTube members, where you can see videos early as well as some other exclusive content. Speaking of which, I'd like to quickly thank all of my patrons and members who are now appearing on screen. Have a good one, and as always, live long and prosper.